and then Andrew Cuomo, because Andrew Cuomo doesn't seem to be interested in science at all.
And we saw that towards the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes, we did.
In March, the state ordered nursing homes to take back patients that had COVID, and that led to this huge surge of deaths in New York, as anyone could have guessed it would have, except for maybe Andrew Cuomo or the other Democrats in New York. And, another troubling part about this for me is that, out of all the COVID deaths, this report from the AARP back in December basically found that 39% of all COVID deaths happen in nursing homes. Now, that takes into account nursing home workers as well as patients, but still, obviously, the majority of that is patients.
Right. Sure.
And that added to the fact that Cuomo put so many back in nursing homes is just, it's incredibly troubling. And add that to the fact that the New York Times is now reporting that New York State Attorney Letitia James is saying that they may have undercounted their nursing home COVID deaths by as much as 50%.
Oh, goodness.
And this is not somebody with an interest in going after Andrew Cuomo.
This is the New York Times.
No.
Yeah, this is the New York Times. This is somebody who absolutely supports.
Yeah, both James and Cuomo are Democrats. It was already an earth-shatteringly shocking story that all those people had died, and now it's being suggested that it could be twice as many.
Yeah.
And
which leads to, I mean, depending on how the numbers work, I don't want to get too, I'm not in the weeds on this, but I mean, what they're essentially saying is that maybe 80% in New York State, maybe 80% of COVID deaths were in nursing homes following that order.
And that falls, I mean, both New York State separated from the numbers that New York City brings is one of the worst states in terms of COVID death percentage. And then New York City, if compared to all the states, is also up there right next to it.
It's just, again, it's tragic. I don't want to be flip. I mean, we're talking about people's lives, and unfortunately, we're talking about people who in many cases died alone, apart from family members, not able to have their hands held, etc., and which just makes it all the worse. Has anybody, I'd love to see Andrew Cuomo get on TV and say, sorry. I mean, I don't know how you'd say, my bad is not going to cover it, but, I don't even know how you'd say it, but I'd love to hear somebody just step up and take some responsibility.
Well, we've known that he's done such a bad job this whole time, but the Democratic narrative, the establishment media narrative has been that he's kind of been one of the shining heroes.
Oh, yeah, no,
of
it's all
this
Trump's fault.
Pandemic.
Yeah, Trump
believes he's
killed
a
all
hero.
these people.
Yeah.
He doesn't think he did
Didn't he have that book coming out that's like how I
how I handled the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah.
That should be an interesting read.
Thank you, Andrew.
I feel like that book is just going to be one fact check after another. Yeah. It's just like...
Should be right next to O.J. Simpson's "I Did It" on the bookshelf.
If I did it,
if I did it,
if I did it, right? Yeah. So O.J., of course,
Well, he's got the Emmy. He's got the book.
Yeah.
He's got the pay raise.
Right.
How does he? How are people giving him all of these things?
Well, that's kind of what I've been wondering from this, and I wanted to get what you guys think on this. Is how I have a sneaking suspicion that this is not going to hurt him any more than it did when we first learned that he sent nursing home patients back. So how do you think they're able to pull this over with everybody? I know the establishment media has a lot of pull, but we've seen
even
from
the New York Times is saying, "Hey, this is worse than they've been telling us."
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I think he's still going to get painted as a hero at the end of the day, and I'm wondering how you think that they've been able to pull off this narrative despite all these facts coming out about him handling this so poorly.
Well, he's got a great connection at CNN. I'll tell you that.
True. Very true. I think one of the things that the mainstream media would need to have to turn on Cuomo is a viable alternative. If you had somebody like, Bill, they don't really seem to like Bill de Blasio all that much at the moment either, but if you had somebody like that, or AOC says, I'm going to run for governor of New York.
Right.
Okay. Now you might see some mainstream media outlets in New York say, "Oh, wait a minute. Well, that's a viable alternative. We kind of like
Right.
AOC. Maybe it's safe."
Diversity in action.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, I've already gone on enough rants today, Deborah.
Sorry.
But what they are not going to do is take shots at him in lieu of knowing who his competition is.
Right.
They're certainly not going to set up a Cuomo failure until the possibility of a Republican challenger is off the table. So if they had as long as the risk is Cuomo versus some unnamed Republican,
Right.
they're always going to go Cuomo. Always.
Yeah.
Somebody else sets up to come after that power from the left.
Yeah.
I could maybe see the New York Times changing their editorial policy at that point. But I think we'll just have to
Yeah.
wait and see if that even happens.
Yeah.